Hi everyone, this is Eduardo from VSharp. So over my 30 plus years of career, I've had the luck of working with many great people. Some were my bosses, some were peers, some were team members. And as in every career, I've seen my share of good and bad. Some of the people that I worked with were honestly awful in many ways, but luckily most of them were great. And of all of these great bosses from whom I really learned a lot, and of all of the great bosses that I had that taught me a lot, I think thinking back, probably most were women. So in today's video, I want to share with you some of the things that I learned from them. Women have a very heavy load to carry as opposed to men. They're subject to gender expectations, society rules, things that women are, quote unquote, supposed to do. They carry most of the parenting load in the household. So they are the ones who end up carrying the weight of having to balance life and family. This need to be stretched thin can limit their bandwidth for other activities. So think about travel, think about long hours at work, think about weekend work, and yet they do it. And one of the things that I've seen and that many studies back up is that unfortunately, they still face discrimination in terms of pay. So on average, women make less money than men executives. And women are heavily underrepresented in the higher ranks in companies. So the people that I want to talk to you about, in spite of the challenges that they have faced, they have managed to become super successful and they've managed to rise to the top of their company. Some of them are running commercial operations worldwide. Some of them are running finance or other functions. And this is aside from living a successful personal life. So we have a lot to learn from them, and I really want to share with you some of the things that I've learned. Multiple studies have shown that women are underpaid in comparison to men, in the general case. They also are overlooked for promotions, for different leadership roles, and as we will talk later, they also face some pretty unique challenges. So there's vastly more men than women in top ranks of companies or organizations. It's sad but true. And again, I don't say this to create a manifesto out of this video. I'm just saying this in order to recognize that when women are successful in their professions, it is in spite of the many obstacles that we as a society have unwittingly put in front of them. And that I really believe that we need to continue to work on, but that's a separate video. So the fact that they are underrepresented in the top echelons of companies makes it really hard for women to achieve career development and professional success. And again, they do. And when they do, we need to learn and we need to pay attention because they do it overcoming a lot of significant obstacles. Like I said before, probably the greatest leaders that I met in my career were women, certainly the majority of them. They all overcame the obstacles that I mentioned and more. So I got to see them exhibit a lot of great behaviors, develop a lot of great useful skills that I learned from, directly or indirectly. So what I want to do in this video is share with you some of the lessons that I learned, and I hope that are as valuable to you as they were to me. All of the female leaders that I've had the luck to work with exhibited one common trait: strength. They succeed in a male-centric world. So they were strong and resilient. They were willing to take risks. They were willing to go the extra mile. They were willing to identify the things that nobody wanted to do, and they took them on top of all of the other challenges. And one of the things that I saw them face the most was the stereotyping, the condescension, the mansplaining. And again, this is not a manifesto against all of those bad behaviors, although they're bad, they're blatant, and they're there. It's more to highlight that there are certain traits that successful female leaders have that allow them to get to where they are that we need to learn from. So strength is one of them. They had this self-assuredness that allowed them to exhibit grace under pressure. So they became role models for others. The creators, the instigators of cultures that were safe, that empowered, and that allowed people to develop. I especially remember one of the most influential leaders that I worked with. She was the head of finance in one of the biggest consumer companies in the world. When I met her, she was just receiving the function, and she embarked on this transformative effort that completely overhauled the function. And again, she faced down a lot of those subtle challenges, like being constantly underestimated. So in spite of this, she was super successful. She opened the door to a lot of female colleagues who also became notable talents on their own right, and who are also part of the people who inspired me for this video. They have grown on to become commercial leaders, finance leaders, function leaders, great moms, great businesswomen, all due to the fact that they were empowered by leaders like the one I have in mind right now. So that strength gave them the self-assuredness, the aplomb, the strength to stand up for themselves and for others, and to face down adversity and become symbols and become inspiration for others, including myself. The second trait is perseverance. One of the things that I see women facing the most, and it's widely documented, it's a problem that I spoke about in some other video in one of my shorts, I believe, that's called the double bind. On the one hand, they're expected to display more quote-unquote female behaviors. They're expected to be warm and emotional and understanding and supportive. But on the other hand, they're told that they cannot progress unless they become more assertive, more leader-like, more aggressive, more like guys. And the guys who exhibit this behavior, they're rewarded. But the women that exhibit those same traits end up being labeled as bossy, as abrasive, as tough as nails, as difficult to work with. That's just not fair. So the essence of that short that I created was to say that if you want to boost the performance of your team, free up your best talent, which normally will be in the ranks of these talented female leaders, by being aware of this double bind. So as you can see, that's a no-win situation for women in leadership positions, right? It's just tough there between a rock and a hard place. We make it hard for them to succeed in male-dominated industries and male-dominated world. So these leaders that I saw as I was growing up persevered through the situation and prevailed and got to their places of success and created great cultures and created great teams. So that's one of the most important lessons that I learned from them, that perseverance. Do not give up. Get up, dust off, keep going. Tony Robbins has this very vivid image that I really like, so let me share it with you briefly. If you keep on hitting a wall, regardless of how hard that wall is or how firm it is, you keep on hitting it, knowing that it's going to fall. You might get tired, right? But at the end of the day, God, the universe, is going to notice that you're just not giving up, And if you keep on hitting it, that wall will fall. And many people with a lot of talent and a lot of great capabilities end up giving up millimeters away from tumbling the wall. And all of these female leaders that I'm thinking about as I make this video, they kept on going, they knocked that wall down, they did not give up. And that's one of the lessons that really resonate with my values, is never giving up. So thank you. Let's go for the next one. They create great women-empowered teams, organizations. They detect that talent like themselves, and they nurture it, and they develop it, and they support it. It's been proven in studies that the higher percentage of female leaders in senior leadership teams, the more profitable and the more successful companies become. So they mentored, provided guidance, support to other women leaders, and in doing so, they enriched their companies, themselves, those women leaders, and the teams overall. So by being aware of this, I was able to really leverage all of the talent in my team. Another great thing that I learned from them and that I saw them do constantly was that they celebrate diversity. Research has found that women leaders tend to more easily adopt and enhance diversity promoting behaviors in their work. Personal experiences that I saw them face made them more attuned to diversity, to being inclusive, and to developing people from all angles. Every one of the leaders that I'm thinking about had her own personality. I'm not trying to say that they were all cookie cutter copies, but what they did have in common was that they were collaborative, inclusive. They were all able to create cultures that valued and celebrated the difference in each of their members. So again, the link's in the description for these articles. As always, if you haven't done it, please make sure that you make a pause right now and you hit the like button, you subscribe, and you share with anybody in your team or in your group of friends who might benefit from these discussions. Remember, the list of videos in the channel keeps on growing. You're going to find a lot of resources there, more topics like the one we're covering today, and things that will help you plan and think about your growth in your career. You can also find me on social media, so LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, here in YouTube, and we can carry on with this conversation. So make sure that you leave comments so that we can focus on more things that are useful. Now, going back to the list of things that I learned from these successful female leaders, flexibility's got to be on the list. This was absolutely common to all of these leaders. They were able to adapt to rapidly changing environments. So as an example, or a historical personal example, I started out working in one of the world's biggest consumer goods companies. And I was part of the finance organization in one of their largest markets worldwide. There were only, I think, 2 women in the executive committee. One of them was the head of finance where I started. Both of these ladies had very, very strong strategic vision, empathy, very strong analytical minds. They were firm and assertive, just like the rest of the guys. And I know it for a fact that they were subject to labeling, to the double bind, and yet they were successful. They were able to launch and grow businesses that continue to grow to this day. In the case of finance, I saw and was part of the transformation that was led by this colleague that I'm thinking about, where the whole function was transformed and revamped and became a talent factory, out of which a lot of very talented individuals, men and women, who are spread across the world leading other enterprises. I myself became a CFO, and some of the things that I attribute my success to was the lessons that I learned working in this team. Let's think about another of the things that I learned from them that I really saw them exhibit in a pretty consistent way: grit and resilience. So grit is that ability to just maintain the course despite obstacles, despite setbacks. Resilience is the ability to recover from them. And they all exhibited these traits in spades, abundantly. Research has shown that female leaders who have faced significant obstacles and challenges in their career exhibit higher degrees of resilience and grit, like scientifically tested. So that perseverance, that strength, that grit and resilience are things that I saw them that I really try to emulate and that helped me greatly along my career. You will notice that as I go through the list, these things are not standalone, right? They are linked to one another. So when I say grit or resilience, it'll be linked to strength, it'll be linked to perseverance. Everything is part of the same circle, but these are just the behaviors that I saw them that taught me the most. One of these leaders was part of an executive committee. She was removed from it through no fault of her own. It was just a restructure. And then she made her way back into the executive committee, and she was able to help drive that business to the best historical performance it had had. So by exhibiting that grit and resilience, all of them became role models and inspire a lot of others and continue to do so, myself included. One of the things that I believe that you will agree that's more common to these leaders is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, and by the way, I made a short video on it that you're going to find linked somewhere around me. Emotional intelligence is that ability to put yourself in others' shoes. So be empathetic, to be aware of your emotions, to be aware of how your messages are received, of how you receive others' messages, to make it all work together so that you have a better understanding of your surrounding and of the people around you. All of these leaders were highly emotionally intelligent. They were just intelligent, full stop, but their level of emotional intelligence was really remarkable. So all of these leaders were adept at building deep relationships, meaningful relationships, not necessarily friendships, but professional relationships that were super meaningful to the people working with them. I remain in touch with most of them, by the way, just because of the depth and the strength of the relationships that they were able to foster through this emotional intelligence. All of these leaders were able to navigate very complex situations in which many diverse interpersonal skill challenges were involved. I really loved how they created a sense of belonging, a sense of psychological safety, and I'm pretty sure that this was all enabled due to their high degree of emotional intelligence. I continue to think of them every day as I go through my job, as I work with others, and try to emulate them. Now, we discussed earlier in the list the double bind and this challenge of balancing their personal lives and their professional lives. And that brings me to number 8 in our list, which is work-life integration. The female leaders that I worked with who had kids and families were able to successfully balance them. I know it for a fact, just having a family and a job is challenging enough. There's many demands that you have on your personal and then your professional time. These leaders were no exception. They faced the same things that I did, but on top of that, they had the societal expectations. They had the kids at home. They had to worry about things that, quite honestly, most men that I know just don't naturally think about. We need to be reminded by our smarter other halves. And they were no exception. They were extremely successful in their job. They were able to raise very successful, happy families, happy significant others, kids, personal interests. So I can only imagine the challenge, how they did that, right? As a result of this ability to balance their personal and work lives, all of them became pretty great at organizing themselves, at setting priorities, at setting boundaries. And that's something that I continue to try to learn from. I honestly don't believe that I ever became as good and as great as they were at keeping everything together and working synergetically. So work-life integration was another key trait. Now let's move to number 9 in the list, insightful questioning. Oftentimes in your professional life, regardless of what you do, you're going to find yourself in situations where there's conversations that you need to seize about resources, be it money, be it people, be it equipment, whatever it is, to ensure your success. So it's key for you to develop the ability to successfully manage your environment, particularly upward, to be able to state a clear case for why you need those resources. And this is something that I saw all of these successful female leaders exhibit abundantly. They were able to ask the right questions. They were able to question the wrong assumptions in a way that was constructive, that was productive, and that ended up with them having the resources they needed to succeed. I was always amazed by how artfully they were able to secure all of those resources that they needed to become successful and to allow their teams to become successful. So insightful questioning, this ability to think about how to ask, how to probe, is a key trait that you need to develop and that I saw these leaders exhibit quite a lot. Of course, this implies that they didn't wait for anybody to remove any barriers. They handled things, they took them on, and they were able to successfully remove the barriers themselves and secure the resources and secure the support. So this made them great at empowering their teams, at feeling empowered, and at driving that inspiring image of success and strength that I was describing a few moments ago. And number 10, and like I mentioned, all of these things are interlinked. Number 10 is tenacity. They never gave up. I saw many of them face challenges that men never will. Some were happy, right? Like family, like a baby, etc. But these were still challenges in the sense of distracting their attention, their energy from work. And they were able to be successful in them. So like I said before, I cannot imagine facing all of these things and being successful like they were. So they consistently showed leadership, confidence, determination. They never deviated from their goals. They never let their organization go astray. They always kept the team motivated. They always kept the team focused. And that's just because of their tenacity. So number 10 for sure in the list of things that I learned from successful female leaders is tenacity. One component of this behavior that I really admired in them, that really taught me a lot, they never became victims, right? So if they had some situation in their personal lives that distracted them from work, they did not use that as an excuse. And they never used the hard situations they faced as crutches or as excuses. They owned their actions. They owned their decisions. They owned their ideas. They were not victims who tried to pass the buck on to somebody else. And this is probably one of the strongest things that I've seen all of them exhibit that really taught me a lot. They were great at pushing themselves out of their comfort zones. They taught me to do that as well. And they never gave up. They were tenacious. Tenacity, keep it in mind. It's one of the things that you're going to see the most in successful female leaders around you, and you would be well advised to learn from that. Now, thanks for watching. I hope this video was useful. Hit like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget, go to my channel. Check out the Growing Your Career checklist. I also have it in Spanish, Creciendo tu Carrera. And you're going to find a lot more resources there, like I said before, that are career-oriented. Let me know what else you want me to talk about. And remember, be better, be smart, be sharp. I'll see you soon.